Good evening, friends. As we are talking today, the confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the world have passed 18 lakh mark, and US has become the leading country for last few days, and more than half a million people have been infected. The death toll has gone more than 20,000, and particularly in New York and New Jersey, the cases are very high, and it is predicted that more than 2 lakh people in US may die out of this COVID-19. So we are going to discuss today with a senior journalist, John Perry, who is an Indian origin journalist, basically an Ben Israeli Jew who has settled in US for last more than 30 years. He has been working as a journalist in US on several television stations, on community radio stations and newspapers, and before going to US he has worked with the Indian Express and Free Press Journal in Mumbai. So we are going to discuss with him the situation in New Jersey and in US, and impact of this situation on the US politics, the presidential elections, India-US relations, and whether this COVID-19 crisis is going to impact the US-China relations and the image of China in the world. So please join me to talk to John Perry. Good evening, John. How are you?
Good evening for you. Good morning for us, Anay. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you coping up with COVID-19 in the lockdown?
Just fed up experiencing how the animals and birds are in a cage at Victoria Garden. So we are seniors. I'm 76, wife is 74. And as such, this is the fourth week that we'll be confined to our house.
And do you think that this is the biggest crisis in your lifespan, or you think that any other natural?
No, I have never seen it. And as I said, I'm 76, had never seen and never even in my worst nightmare thought about it, that the world would come to a standstill. And that's what happened now.
And how do you think the US is coping up with that? Because there are several allegations that US President Donald Trump was slow to respond. Initially, he denied that there is such kind of pandemic. Then he said that this is the greatest calamity in the human history. So there are a lot of flip-flops. And so how do you see his performance on this backdrop?
And like any other media, even the American media is either pro-Republican, Republican, anti, pro-Trump, anti. So if you read the Sundays today's New York Times, basically they are given, they report that Trump was warned several times by intelligence, by medical community about the threat, and he overlooked it. But if you turn to Fox and other Washington Post, Washington Times and all, they're defending it and they're covering up. So you never know. Media is highly biased. So to get to the truth is very difficult now. And I'm sure it's the same thing in India.
Yes, it's same everywhere. And it's true. It's same with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi also. So coming back to my second question, I would like to ask you, what are the few, let's say, 3 steps that you think that the Trump administration that has taken, they are in right direction, and there are 3-4 points where it has gone wrong or where it was slow to respond. How do you?
I think even just like Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he is worried both about the lives of the people as also the economy. And this week, I think White House had called a meeting of the medical professional and of the business, the top business leaders. So he'll hear from both the side and he'll take a decision. Basically, it's a gamble between life and economy. And they'll have to take a risk. Lives will be saved, but if we don't have food on the table, why? I mean, it doesn't make sense. If we have food on the table and no people to have it, it's a problem. It's going to be a gamble, whether it's India, whether it's US or any other country.
The economic package that US has announced, if I'm not wrong, it is more than $2 trillion, which is the biggest in the history of US. Do you think it is sufficient? And what do you want to say about the time it took in the House of Representatives and in the Senate to get it cleared? And so there is politics over even the
Yeah,
passing of
that's
an.
one of the reasons when you asked first that Trump was, he was alerted about it and all. That's the time, December, Jan, where the Democratic Party and the Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, they were more interested in the impeachment of the president than discussing the alerts that they had received. I'm sure apart from President Trump, even the top leaders of Democratic Party were aware of it. But they thought it was a good opportunity, to impeach President Trump. So valuable time was lost in December and Jan playing politics, then looking after the welfare of the people.
But this economic package, do you think it is sufficient or a bigger package? Economic package is going to get announced very soon.
My feeling is, again, Anay, my feeling is as an American citizen, yes, it's enough for now. We'll be getting $1,200, I think, in another 2, 3 weeks, deposited into a bank account. And it should sail us through. He has given enough for businesses and all. But again, depending on which party you support, what your views are, if you ask the Democrats, they may object to money that's being given to the businesses. They may want more, including money for the illegals who are here. So, it depends.
So, and do you think that the image of United States as the most powerful country in the world has got tarnished? Because many people are saying that US, which makes the most sophisticated weapons and most sophisticated technologies, and now it is struggling for paracetamol and personal protection equipments, and even this medicine for which is used against malaria. And Trump, in a way, has to talk to Prime Minister Modi and in a way bully him or even threaten him in a tweet that you have to give it to us. And so, how do you look at this image of US?
I don't think, Anay, I don't think the image of only the US has been tarnished. I mean, along with the US, so many other countries, you managed to go to the moon and other planets and all. Let's face it, tomorrow if we have a toothache, we have to remove it. We don't have medicine for that. So same thing happened over here. We never expected it. We haven't made any, big inventions or anything like that. And number two, where medicine concerned, basically it's 80% China, 20% India that was supplying the world. And the second thing you referred to, Trump threatening Modi if he doesn't give the raw material for the material. I think it was more of a fake news. And Modi had, soon after hearing from it, Narendra Modi had accepted that, fact that India will have to help. There's something called relationships. That's number one. That's the top priority. And number two is, humanity, where even countries, if they don't have good diplomatic relation, they help Israel. For example, Israel is going to help Hamas in Gaza and train them. So, I think, and we didn't read about it much in American media, Anay, that, Trump had warned Modi and this was played up basically in Indian media. I think the relation that Narendra Modi has maintained not only with Trump but other world leaders are some of the finest. No Indian leaders has ever come to that stage where, I mean, to be frank, we are proud to be Indians in America. I'm here for 40 years. I never felt so proud as I feel today. And I can proudly say I'm Indian. It's because of the policies of the government.
I mean, conjoining my first question, like you said, I agree with you that after the initial arguments whether US is bullying India on that, when India decided to lift ban on export on some life-saving medicines and decided to supply it not just to US but also to Brazil, to Israel, and most of other countries, including our countries. Then suddenly the image of Prime Minister Modi improved, and Donald Trump also praised him, and he said, "We will remember
he
this."
Praised it even during the White House conference, what he has every day. He spoke long about India and Narendra Modi. And in fact, there are moves here where, apart from the Japanese companies who will be pulling out, they may be manufacturing in Japan, but United States won't be able to manufacture here because of, the high this thing what we have to pay per hour. But there are openly they are talking about moving American businesses from China to India. That's a good news for India.
I will come to that. Donald Trump is one of the few world leaders who has openly, publicly called COVID-19 as the Chinese virus. And when he was criticized why you are trying to be a racist person and why it has to be linked to China, he said that it's very simple because the virus came from China. And even though not many world leaders are talking about it privately, a lot of people, and particularly India, are very firmly believe that China is responsible for this outbreak. So do you think after this the worst gets over, there will be some kind of a coalition of willing to I would at least not punish China, but at least to put some price that the world has suffered, and so do you think that something like this is going to happen in the near future?
And coming back to the first thing, yes, it's a Chinese virus. We had the Spanish flu. So what's there if there's a Chinese virus? It originated over there. And the majority of the people, they want to be politically correct, so they hesitate. But it's a Chinese virus, so that's the way we call it. In fact, I'm waiting for the day where people will wear T-shirts here in summer and say, I survived the Chinese virus. People are waiting to do that. Legal suits are being filed in trillions of dollars against China worldwide. You know that. The American Chinese community, if you see today's New York Times, they have said that they are frightened. Uh, Businesses, I mean, it's a pity that they'll be punished, but businesses owned by Chinese, especially like Chinese restaurant, I think they'll suffer the most in the US. So there will be repercussions, and you know, as such, both China as a country and Chinese worldwide, they'll pay for it.
John, you have spent many years covering the Indian affairs in US. I mean, there is a large Indian diaspora. If I'm not wrong, it's more than 3 million people. And there is a section of Indians in US who are worried because after this, their jobs might not be there and they may have to return India. Their visas are over. And on the other hand, there are many other Indian Americans who are playing a very important role, like doctors and people in finance, and they are at the forefront of this America's war against COVID-19. So how do you assess role by Indian community in US, and do you think that Indian community in US will emerge as it will improve its image at the end of this crisis?
And I would keep the Indian community separate from the ones who are here on H-1B visas. They are Indians too. They are part of us, but they are not Americans as such. They are here still on Indian. They are Indian nationals who are working here. Where Indian community is concerned, they have done well. And with the publicity there was a time, I think a few years back, when there were reports on television, they would interview people that we can't understand what our doctors speak, or they advise us. Basically, they were referring to our accent, Indian accent, and they used to make fun of us. Today, they have realized time and again that 31% of doctors in the US are of Indian origin. As you know, President Trump has asked Indian doctors to come here and settle down because we are short of medical staff here. Indian nurses are doing very well. We had quite a number of, casualties among the Indian medical profession here. I would say hats off to Indian professionals over here, especially from the medical community. I know of friends who are working like 14 to 16 hours in hospital. That is one. Number two, when it comes to the other side, the ones who are here, H-1B visas and all, what will America gain by having them here? Because where business is concerned, they are at the lowest point. They may not need so many people right in the beginning. Hopefully, they'll, even if they have to go back to India, they'll be given precedent when it comes, as and when vacancies arise in those companies for which they were working. They'll be given preference that, you have a company and you had 50 from India. You can't now hire someone else. Those 50, you'll have to recall them. I think that will be the agreement. Yes, they'll go through hardship. They'll have to leave the US back in India. India is not the same. You have your own unemployment problem now. I mean, I feel very bad for them, very sorry for them, but this is, reality today, Anay. They are the ones who will suffer the most.
John, as all of us are eagerly awaiting for the US presidential elections in November, and before this crisis began, the picture was that Donald Trump might sail through easily because the Democratic Party did not have a contender. But now things are changing very fast. And on other hand, in the Democratic Party, Bernie Sanders had withdrawn his candidature. He was very much critical of India, obviously, as a democratic and as someone who is very much inclined towards socialism. But now he is gone. So how do you see US presidential elections, and whether Trump will be the best option for India, or we may see Joe Biden equally
I think, Anay, as you know, the Democratic Party is turning more to the left. It's a socialist. If Joe Biden, the presumed candidate of Democratic Party, if he has to win the votes, the delegates of Sandy, he'll have to push himself basically more to the left, because Hillary didn't do that during the last election when she was the Democratic presidential candidate, and in return, Bernie Sanders, people didn't vote for her, and she did blame. I don't think, in keeping in mind India's interest and the Modi government in New Delhi, we need the Democratic Party in power here. Trump is much better. He may, sound sometimes unpresidential, the things he says, but he means well. He has respect both for Narendra Modi and for India. But the whole thing hinges on what decision will be taken now, whether to open, whether to continue the lockdown, no. And by the time we have election in November, whether we are making further progress in business, doing well, catching up to come back to the normalcy, or we are failing. But I don't think, I would say, about 75-80% is going to be President Trump again.
So let's hope that that happens, and it will be, whatever the outcome of the US elections, the new president of United States, whether Trump continues or it's Joe Biden, will give equal importance to its relations with India, and Indo-US relations continue grow. I hope that US will come out from this crisis of the century pretty quickly and with less